Good morning.
Good morning.
It is an honor to be up here speaking to you guys from God's Word. I just hope that everything that comes from me is encouraging and edifying to you in some way today. Today I'm going to start out with the famous Philippians 4:13. It reads, "I can do all things through him who gives me strength." Now what does that actually mean? To me it means God gives me strength to live my life and stand up for him and all that he believes, which is what I believe as well. If we turn to Daniel chapter 3, we'll start in verse 8. Daniel chapter 3 and verse 8, we'll see that we aren't the only ones that live this way. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are three men that King Nebuchadnezzar has put together this big statue, this golden image. And it's come to this point where they're getting ready to play a whole bunch of music, and when this music plays, everybody's supposed to bow down. And in verse 8 we'll start. It says, "Therefore at that time certain Chaldeans came forward and maliciously accused the Jews. They declared to King Nebuchadnezzar, 'O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that every man who hears the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast into a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom you have appointed over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, pay no attention to you. They do not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up.' Then Nebuchadnezzar, in furious rage, commanded that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought. So they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar answered and said to them, 'Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden image that I have set up? Now if you are ready when you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music, if you fall down and worship the image that I have made well and good, but if you do not worship, you shall immediately be cast into a burning fiery furnace. And who is the God who will deliver you out of my hands?' Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, 'O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If this be so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, be it to known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up.'" Now think about the president walking in, and he comes straight up to you and asks you a question that will most likely test your faith. Now if we're here in the church building, that might be a little bit easier, surrounded by all these Christians that are just like us. But if you're out in Walmart, where you're the only one, maybe you have somebody else with you, that's going to be a lot harder to do. We see in other instances that God gives us strength. One is in Matthew chapter 14. Matthew 14, this is when the apostles are out on the stormy sea, and Jesus is walking out onto the water. And in verse 28, it says, "And Peter answered him, 'Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water.'" Now, if I see somebody from a distance walking on the water, and I'm not entirely sure who they are, then I don't know if I'm going to ask them to tell me to walk on the water too. Because we all know that no normal human can just start walking on the water. And then we see later on in that verse that Peter was afraid. In verse 30 it says, "But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, 'Lord, save me.' Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying to him, 'O you of little faith, why did you doubt?'" We see why he did this in 1 Corinthians chapter 10. 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 13. It reads, "No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability, but with the temptation he will also provide the way of escape that you may be able to endure it." In the middle of that verse it says right there, God is faithful. He's going to stay with us the whole way. We have the option, like Peter, we have the option to come to him. And if we're struggling, we can always cry out to him and say, "Lord, save me, help me from this temptation I'm going through." Also, this verse says, "No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man." It says later, "He will not let you be tempted beyond your ability." In Genesis chapter 39, we see that Joseph has risen to power and has been put in charge of Potiphar's household and his possessions. In verse 11, Genesis 39, verse 11, it says, "But one day when he went into the house to do his work, and none of the men of the house was there in the house, she caught him by his garment, saying, 'Lie with me.' But he left his garment in her hand and fled and got out of the house." Now, all the men here know that we struggle, and this may be one of the biggest and hardest struggles. And Joseph is here with a woman that is begging him to come with him because we're all alone. And he resists her and he decides to say no. And that is definitely a hard thing to do. And it's just another way that God shows us that he gives us strength to power through our temptation. And that we're always able to get out of our temptation. We see in Isaiah chapter 41, Isaiah 41 verse 10 says, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." He's always with us. He's with Joseph in Genesis. He's with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in Daniel. He's with Peter, both physically and in spirit, in Matthew. He's with us right now. And that's one thing that we can't ever forget, that he's always there. He's always wanting to help. It says in the middle of verse 10, "I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." There's nothing that we can do for him to not want us. We read in Hebrews that if we resist the devil, that he will flee from us. If we run away from our temptation, if we're able to get through it, then the devil is going to get to a point where, okay, I'm wasting my time. Then that's just proof of what God can do through us. If we turn back to Daniel chapter 3, we read in verse 26. Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the door of the burning fiery furnace. He declared, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out and come here. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out from the fire, and the satraps, the prefects, the governors, the king's counselors gathered together and saw that the fire had not had any power over their bodies of those men. The hair of their heads was not singed, their cloaks were not harmed, no smell of fire had come upon them. Nebuchadnezzar answered and said, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him and set aside the king's command and yielded up their bodies rather than serve and worship any god except their own God. We see that we can have victory with God through Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now, it says there wasn't even the smell of fire on them. And today we go out to a campfire, a bonfire, and we might not get burned or our hairs might not get singed or anything, but we still come inside and you can smell the smoke. And they didn't even have that smell. Now, if that's not the power of God and the strength that He gives us, then I don't know what is. But we all have something inside of us through God. And we have the strength to overcome whatever it is that He puts us through.